And we're live streaming now, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, the November 15th, 2022 Accommodation Tax Committee meeting is now called to order. Can we just take a moment of silence? And then I will turn it over to our budget folks, okay? Amen. Kathy?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm trying to get my screens all set up so I can see everybody. There we go. You'd think 3 screens would be enough, but it doesn't seem to be. So I hope y'all can see my slideshow. And we will just move on. So our agenda today is going to cover several things. The approval of minutes from 2022, update on some projections and some changes in the Tourism Expenditure Committee requirements. Review of the CVB's planned expenditures for 2022, 2023. Then we'll discuss the 2022 applications, although I think we're actually going to do that after we look at 2022. Then we'll look at 2022's amended budget, and the committee will vote on that. And then we'll, after we discuss the applications, as we discuss the applications, we'll also look at the 2023 proposed budget, and the committee will vote on that. And then we just have some notes at the end to just go over what comes next.
Kathy?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted? You may be on mute. I'm looking for a motion from the members.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
This is Mamie Bush, second.
Moved and properly seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Kathy?
All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is the revenue history, which, as y'all can imagine, has been kind of up and down and hard to project the past few years. Our high to date was in 2019, where it was $7.7 million. And then, you know, we all know what happened. So as you can see the numbers here, 2021, we made a pretty good recovery. This year to date, and we've only received 3 of the 4 quarters worth of revenue, has actually been really good. I know that part of the funds that we received in 2022 to date have been overdue payments or missed payments from previous years. So we just have to keep that in mind as we're projecting 2023's revenue. But it looks like we're going to be close to maybe a little over $12 million for this year, which is astronomical as far as I'm concerned. That's great. But we're projecting 2023 to be a little bit less. And that's, like I said, because we had some of those prior year payments that were some hotels caught up in 2022 for things they may have owed from prior years. So we don't want to, include that in our base for projections for next year. So I think we're doing really well. I'm not sure how much of it, and the folks on the committee that are in the hospitality hotel industry can probably address this better than I can. But whether it's the room rates that are up or the number of room nights sold, I think it's a mixture of both. I do believe our room rates are probably higher than they have been for a few years. So it's a mix of things, and that kind of does make it hard to project what the revenues might be. We get a lot of information from the CVB and some analysis that they get from the College of Charleston Office of Tourism Analysis. And we do look at these things and try to fit it all together and come up with a number. but this is the best I've got. So that's where we are. Anybody have any questions about revenues?
Great news.
All right. Next, we're going to talk about the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee. As you may be familiar, this is the committee at the state level that's affiliated with the Department of Revenue that has the authority to review and look at how all of the municipalities and counties spend the state accommodations tax. And this committee is created through the state statute that creates the accommodations tax. And how it lines out, how we have to spend that money. So the expenditure committee has come up with some updates. We are required as a city to provide a report to them every year. And the majority of what's in the report, at least to date, has been just a recap of the amount of revenue that we received, how much was paid to our designated marketing organization, which is the CVB, and how much we spent on everything else. And we had to give details to them of, a pretty detailed report of how much we spent, how much we gave out in grants, how much we spent on, contributions or debt service payments or different things. And those are all expenses from what we call the 65% fund, which is 65% of the revenue that we receive. There is also what's called a 30% fund. The 30% fund is the amount that's paid to the CVB, or our designated marketing organization. So over the past couple of years, they have worked to increase the reporting that we have to do on the CVB and how they spend our money. So the first year that we have to file that is this year. This report is due actually right about now. And we have the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee created a new form, and I'll share the basics of that with you in a few minutes. But we have to get a report now from the CVB that we will include with our annual report to the state, to the Tourism Expenditure Review Committee. So that's what this is all about. There's a new form. I think Sherry Ann emailed to the committee members yesterday, and it contains the amount the CVB received from us, and it also shows how the funds were spent. And it includes the amount budgeted for the current year covered, the actual spending for the year covered as compared to budget, and the proposal for the upcoming year. And all of these amounts are categorized according to the type of expenditure. And the advisory committee's role as related to the designated marketing organization is to review their budget of planned expenditures for the upcoming year. The committee should make a recommendation to City Council regarding these planned expenditures. In other words, it'll be kind of taken into account with our budget, and whether you recommend what they have described to us as their planned budget for next year. And the city must consider that recommendation, but it is not mandated in the law that we have to accept the recommendation of the advisory committee. Again, it's an advisory committee, but we do take their recommendations, seriously. So we will, discuss that and record the committee's recommendation. There is one issue that kind of makes this a little more complicated, and it's been complicated for years, but having the CVB's report in there is making it a little bit more difficult. It's a fiscal year issue. Their fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th, and our fiscal year is January the 1st through December 31st. So what that ends up meaning is that the budget that the prepared budget for 2022, 2023 that the CVB is submitting is actually the budget for beginning July 1st, 2022, going through June 30th, 2023. So that means we're actually voting on it a little late. And that's something we will have to work out. But one of the things that we're considering, and I think would be the best thing, is to try to fit this in with our fiscal year. And when we need to approve the budget, doesn't line up, when we have to approve our accommodations tax budget, doesn't line up with when the CVB needs to present their planned expenditures to us, and we need to vote on that. So we're proposing that we may consider, having an additional accommodations tax advisory committee meeting in the spring, sometime April, May, or it may even go into June, depending on how quickly the CVB provides that information to us. And that would be specifically to approve the CVB's spending plan. It wouldn't include anything else at that point, no grant applications or anything like that. Although if there was a reason that we needed to amend our current year's accommodations tax budget at that time, we could do that if we were having a meeting, or we could, vote on an amendment. And then we would have our traditional meeting in winter, late October, early November. It's kind of funny when it's been 70 degrees up until a few days ago to call it winter, but technically it is winter. So at that point, we would do our normal thing, which is review and make recommendations on the grant applications, approve the current year amended budget if there was an amendment that needed to be approved, and also approve the proposed budget for the coming year. So that's what we're thinking. Hopefully that spring meeting would be probably a very quick one, but we would also plan, if the committee desired, to have the CVB at that meeting to present their budget and answer questions about it, or provide, more in-depth explanations than what I can probably provide you. So.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes.
Just a quick question. What type of amendments can this committee offer with respect to their budget, their allocation rather?
Well, you can't change the amount because that's by statute, but I guess we could question them on if there were certain things they had in their budget that we didn't think were benefiting Charleston, that maybe we felt were benefiting, if it was advertising that or marketing efforts that they were making that were not benefiting us as much as, say, maybe another area. I'm not really sure because this is kind of all new to me as far as going through this. But I think the best thing probably to do, especially for the first time we do this, is to have them come in and explain their whole marketing program. Okay. And I do have some more information in this slideshow on that. Okay. So I will be sharing some of that with you in a minute.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
Sure. So what we have to do is look at and approve the 2022-2023 spending plan. Again, that's what started July 1st of this year and will go through June 30th of 2023. And this is what it looks like. This is just a snapshot of a portion of the report that you were emailed yesterday. So is there, I'll give y'all a chance to discuss it if you want to. I do have in the slides following this some examples that they've given us of what type of expenditures they usually make that fit into these different categories, such as the advertising or promotional materials and whatnot. So if you'd rather go through that first or look at the numbers first, it's up to y'all.
We'll leave it up to you then. Move forward.
Okay, so here's the numbers. 2021, 2022, they budgeted to spend $2.296 million, but they actually spent 4.1. Of course, our amount that we gave to them was a little bit higher because our revenue came in higher than budgeted, and that, that calculation of 30% of the revenue drove that up a little bit. And so what we're looking at today specifically is this is what they have budgeted for 2022-2023. It totals almost $3 million. And again, that was from July 1st through of 2022 through June 30th of 2023. So it only, the the amount that we will be approving today to give the CVB for next year will be all of 2023. So again, the numbers don't quite match up because of the fiscal year differences, but I hope that it will make sense to you. I think maybe it's not the numbers as much as the different categories and what they spend it on that's most important. So I'll go ahead and move through those slides now. So these are the categories, the explanation they gave us for the 2021-2022 report. So I just pulled some examples from each of those categories. They send us also a more detailed report along with that form that you just saw. So the first category is destination marketing, and their objective here is promoting Charleston as the country's premier overnight destination. So there's a lot of different things they do. There's branding the community with photography, videography, written content, make sure the message is out there and it's always fresh. Using online, digital, print, radio, television, OTT streaming, billboard advertising, and direct mail to market the area. Marketing plans to support group sales initiatives. And we'll talk about group sales in a minute, which includes networking with travel advisors to get them aware of Charleston if they're not aware of the area, and to make sure that they're pushing, their clients maybe to look at Charleston as a destination. They have their publications, a visitor's guide, the golf guide, a wedding guide, and a destination planning guide, which is for the group businesses. They have their websites, explorecharleston.com and charlestonareabeaches.com. And they also have digital copies of their various publications, I think, on their website too, so you can access them there. There's a social media presence and social media campaigns that they run throughout the year. And again, as I mentioned, they partner with the Office of Tourism Analysis at the College of Charleston. So they compile and analyze key metrics to make sure this marketing is reaching its intended targets, and to make sure that, I guess, that it is effective. The next area is media relations and communication about the Charleston area. This is where they develop relationships with travel writers, editorial boards of newspapers, magazines, and that sort of thing, and other journalists to promote Charleston. They maintain a robust photo and video libraries that they update regularly to ensure that the content is current and it's relevant. And this is to assist journalists and broadcasters in telling the readers, viewers about Charleston. So I guess this would be like if a media publication, a magazine, wanted to publish a photo of something in Charleston, CVB could provide them that photo to use in their story. Business development, that's networking and all to attract new journalists to the community, to go out and get people to come visit Charleston or write about Charleston that maybe haven't before. There's also networking with the travel industry groups such as Society for American Travel Writers, et cetera, to get the word out there in the media. We get a lot of, I believe, free publicity from editorial type and articles that, it's not an ad that's paid for, but it certainly helps to see that article in Southern Living magazine, about Charleston, to whet people's appetite for coming here. There's also group sales, multiple sales initiatives to bring in group business. This is things like trade shows and group related initiatives that focus on attracting groups to Charleston, like a convention or that sort of thing. Corporate sales associations, that have like annual meetings or whatever, government agencies, national and international tour operators that, get them to bring tours here. Obviously, weddings are a big market. And then SMERF markets, which is social groups, military groups, educational groups, religious groups, and fraternal organizations that they can appeal to have an event or a gathering or meeting in Charleston. Then there's visitor services. They do operate 4 visitor centers within the Tri-County area. There's our visitor center, obviously, on Meeting Street. They have one at Kiowa, one in Mount Pleasant, and one in North Charleston, which I believe probably have information about all of the area in those visitor centers. So these visitor centers provide information, directions, they assist people in planning their visit, give them access to some public facilities, and just generally promote the area. They also are capable of booking tours of the area and hotel rooms through those visitor centers. If someone's in town and for a day trip from Myrtle Beach, for instance, and they don't have a hotel room for the night and they decide they want to stay, the visitor center is capable of booking that hotel room for them at the visitor center. And they also can set up mini visitor centers for large group events. So if there was a convention or a big event, a festival or something, they can come in and set up a mini visitor center there so the people at that group event can get information. The other category is visitor information support. That's their phone lines. They have visitor inquiry service operators. They're also trained to provide information to visitors in times of crisis, like if someone's here visiting and there's a Hurricane Ian coming, then they can provide information to people who may not be familiar with that sort of event and give them information on what they should be doing. The pandemic, they gave out a lot of information during the pandemic about what was open, what's closed, and other situations that may come up. And they also have their digital chat platforms, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with. Every time, you go to a website, like to check on your cable TV service or something like that, the video chat pops up in the corner and they want to talk to you. So that's the kind of thing they also have.
Hey, Kathy, this is Dudley. Yes. And this is probably more of a question for the Convention Bureau as opposed to you. Because and they will come in and chat with us, I think you said. Am I correct?
Yes. I've spoken with Lori Lynn Smith, who's their executive operations. So.
The reason why I bring it up is we're getting ready to bring online some major tourist attraction. For example, the International African American Museum will be opening in January.
Right.
And my question is whether or not they're already promoting that opening. And if so, are they targeting in terms of the kind of media outlets that they might be using? I mean, there are just tons of questions that I might have for them in that regard, and not just only for the International African American Museum, but just targeting in general in terms of the audiences that they're attempting to reach. But I think that's probably a discussion that we need to have with them, because we are expecting 150,000 people annually to the International African American Museum. And we can anticipate all we want, but if we're not out there advertising it, we may not meet that target.
Yes, and I knowing them, I would imagine that they're on top of that. We do have, I can see that Chris Campbell is from the CVB is on the meeting with us. I'm not sure if Lori Lynn is or not. Chris, I don't know if either one of y'all might have something to add to in response to Councilmember Gregory's question.
Sure. Good afternoon. This is Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you, Councilman Gregory, for that. You're exactly right. We are absolutely anticipating that, and work is already beginning and has begun in earnest to start to connect with various audiences via various publications related to the IAAM opening, and we're working closely in partnership with them and their marketing entity to ensure it's a strategic and a synergistic approach. We'll be happy to dig into more of the details around that. when we are able to visit with you all in person.
I'd appreciate, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So I guess now we can move on unless anyone else has any more questions about this particular report that we are looking at today. So I'm going to go back to this report here. So I guess, Councilmember Gregory, we need to vote on whether we are recommending approval of the amount budgeted for 2022, 2023, as shown in this last column here.
That's the 2.9 mil?
Yes.
Okay. I need a motion from the committee if we're going to move forward with recommending approval. Do I hear a motion?
This is
Could
Edward. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question, Councilman. I guess that I'm confused, and I'm on the board of the Visitors Bureau, so I assume I abstain anyway. But so $2.9 million when, you know, this year looks like 4.1, previously it was 4.1 and growing. We just looked at the statistics of what we're expecting to see in the revenue growth generally. So we know it's going to be a lot more than $3 million. It seems a little arbitrary to approve it as it is, or am I misunderstanding something? It doesn't seem like there's a lot of substance to it. I mean, I'm super supportive and I think that they should be approved. I just don't understand the total.
I think that's a fair question, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy. If we get additional funds in that area, we make the adjustments accordingly.
Yes, and just for reference, the report that we just received from the CVB on the amount they actually received from us during the fiscal year July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, the amount that we gave them, and this does tie into our records. The 30% that they got was $2,725,153. So as you can see, for that period of time, I can't get my mouse over there. Let's see. Here we go. They projected that they would spend 2.3 almost, million. That was the amount they had budgeted. And we ended up giving them a little over 2.7, but I think they've combined other funds in with this to spend a 4.1. But I believe when we have a spring meeting where we review these in the future, that we can have them give us a little bit more explanation of how that works. But I would say that the 2.9, given that their fiscal year and our fiscal year are different, is probably reasonable. But I'm sure that they will up their spending as we give them, more money, depending on how much our revenue actually comes in at. And the 1 quarter that we've received for July through September of 2022 was a bit larger than what we expected. So I would think that this number will go up as the revenue is higher and the 30% then that we pay them is higher. I would expect that they will come back with an actual amount for 2022, 2023 that will be higher than what they have budgeted. Yeah. They're kind of like us. They set their budget based on probably a bit of a conservative estimate on the amount that they would receive from us so that they're not overcommitted, but adjusted as the year goes on. I'm kind of speaking out of turn here, but that would be my assumption of what they would be reasonable for them to do.
Yeah, sounds like it's just a product of the cycles being different, fiscal versus annual. So
yes,
correct,
totally
Casey. You're correct. Okay. Any Edward, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to make a motion to accept the proposed budget.
Do I hear a second?
This is Mamie Bush. I second.
Moved in properly seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, and just when the commission members are voting, if it's possible to have your camera turned on and everyone unmuted, that way the clerk's office can record everyone's votes. Thank you.
Okay. When you're voting, please make sure your cameras are on, okay? Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Cameras on. All in favor, say aye.
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 The ayes have it. Approved. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, how did Commissioner De Alessandro vote?
Alexander?
Ben, if you can unmute and tell us what your vote was.
Ben,
Uh,
what was your vote?
I vote with the ayes.
You're breaking up. You voted yay or nay?
Yay,
Okay. Thank you.
yay.
All
Yay.
right.
You hear?
Thank
You
you.
get it?
Got it.
Yes, yes.
All right.
You got what you need, Jennifer?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I'll turn it back over to Kathy. Kathy?
Okay. So let's go back to where we were. We finished all of this. So now we're going to look at the 2022 budget. If you remember, we had a meeting back in April, the one we just voted on the minutes for, where we amended the 2022 budget. And that was because when we first did the budget, as you'll see in the first column, 2022 proposed, we had really not a lot of confidence in our revenue projections at that point. And we just weren't sure that we would receive enough money to give out grants because we had, other commitments as far as like the 30% to the CVB and the bond payments and all. So we just reserved an amount of $1.9 million to spend on grants if we did have a grant process in 2022. So we didn't do it in our normal time, on our normal time schedule. So we met in April to actually amend the budget to include those grants. And that's on the next page, but I'll show you in a second. So what we want to vote on today is the second amendment, which is the column on the far right. That's with our updated revenue projections. We're spending some fund balance because, as I said, we received a lot more revenue in 2021, actually, too, than we were expecting. So we need to spend down some of that fund balance because by state law, we have 2 years from receipt to spend it. And then, of course, the change in the revenue amount affects the 30% to the CVB and the 5% to the general fund, because those are calculations based on the amount of revenue. One thing that we added here in this top section is, as I hope y'all have seen, the beautiful renovations to the Convention and Visitors Bureau facility that they're running for us now, that our visitor center that the CVB is running for us. And they also were in charge of getting the renovations done and their design and everything. So we had an agreement with them where we would pay a certain portion of the cost of that renovation. And the project was complete. So now we needed to cover the cost of that final payment to them for the renovation. Our bond payments have stayed the same. And we're also making that contribution to Mother Emanuel Memorial Fund for the memorial that they're going to erect on the site. And that is a $2 million request. And then our other amounts stayed the same for the rest of 2022. And then go to the next page. The grant amounts, as you can see, we're not proposing to amend anything for grants that were awarded. So that brings our total expenditures now to 13.2 million. And if you look back at the revenue here, it's the same. So we have a balanced budget that we're going to vote on, and we have no money left over.
And this is, and just so we're clear, this is the amended 2022 budget. So
Yes.
everybody's clear.
Yes. So
Okay.
it's our revenue, obviously, I'm projecting, we still have 1/4's payment left to receive from the state for 2022. But, so it's projected. So I don't imagine that I got it exactly to the dollar, but I hope I'm close. So the actuals may be slightly different, but this is what we would, whoops, sorry about that. This is what we would propose spending based on the revenue that we think we're going to get.
Okay. Any questions? If there are no questions, do I hear a motion to approve the amended 2022 budget as submitted?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Seconded? Bush?
Yes, sorry, maybe
Okay,
Bush, I
moved in.
second.
Yes, moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye, and please show yourselves so that Jennifer, our clerk of council, will be able to recognize you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do we need a roll call, Jennifer?
I think so.
I do too.
Commission Member Bush. It's aye or nay.
Aye.
Commission Member Lavin,
Aye.
Commission Member Campbell.
Nope. He's not on the commission.
I'm sorry, Commission Member Condon,
Aye.
Commission Member De Alessandro,
Aye.
and Chairman Gregory.
Aye.
All right, I think that's everyone.
The ayes have it. Next, Kathy, back to you.
Yep. Now we are going to talk about 2023. So as I mentioned earlier, our projected revenue for 2023 is $12 million. We expect some interest income there, and the 30% to the visitor center and the 5% to the general fund are calculated amounts. We have bond payments still that don't vary from year to year, so these should look familiar to you. We are planning a project for the Dock Street Theater to update the lighting. It's going to be a new LED lighting system and maybe some other repairs in with that. So we are budgeting $1 million to update the Dock Street Theater. We're going to transfer some money for the Angel Oak and for White Point Gardens restrooms. There's going to be some improvements at the Angel Oak, and which is a good tourist attraction, and also providing some not portable restrooms, but some restrooms at White Point Gardens. Then we have our funding for the city-produced festivals and events during the year, Farmers Market, Moja Piccolo, Christmas in Charleston. And then we also make a payment to CARTA so that the Dash shuttle in the downtown area is free, that you can ride it for free. And so those are the initial, before we get to the grant applications, the initial things that are included at this point in the budget. And so we can move on to the review and discussion of the grant applications.
Yeah, Kathy, before we move forward, can we go back to the other screen? Should we approve that first, or do we wait until we deal with all of 2023 together?
I think we need to do the whole thing at one time.
And then just for me, just a point of order, I voted on the 2022 amendments. I would like to recuse myself from the vote on the Mother Manual Memorial. Jennifer, you got it?
Yes, sir, we have it.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy, just one question on this, and sorry,
Sure.
just for my education.
Yes, Casey.
On the proposed uses outside of what we'll go over, that's the remaining share, how the city is proposing divvying up those revenues. And there is not a remaining balance between the two per se and what's been budgeted. Meaning there isn't an opportunity for this committee to weigh in and say, well, we have a recommendation on this versus that, or adding something to it. It was just more of a matter of fact, just in terms of structure.
Casey, you always have the opportunity to question and to make recommendations. So
I'm just sorry.
Go ahead,
I'm just
Kathy.
going to skip ahead a couple of slides, Casey, just to show you that when we get to the grants, we do have some leftover funding here.
Got it.
That the committee is, that's available for the committee to distribute. The idea would be that you'd probably distribute them, to the grant recipients, because the other things that we were looking at, of course, are amounts that we have set based on either bond requirements or project cost or the agreement with CARTA. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, it does. My question was related to the recent. There's been a lot of recent chatter in the community about the lack of holiday decorations in the city, and knowing that specifically the purpose of look through some of the governing documents of how these tax dollars should be used. It does seem like this is a meaningful way for the city to allocate resources for purposes of decorations that can bring people from the outside. Not sure how it was handled before when there was a little more robust piece, or if this is something that we should be delegating out to the CVB or otherwise, but just more of a point of clarification, and if that's ever been considered from the city staff's perspective.
Casey, I followed that, and I'm in total agreement with you. I just don't know whether or not these are the funds for that. I mean, for instance, I see Hampton Park being decorated. It's not. And it is a tourist attraction. And so, I mean, I'm where you are, and I was going to bring that up in our general budget discussion and not necessarily a tax, accommodation tax. However, I do think that that is a potential fund for doing just what you articulated.
Got it. Great.
Yes, and the amount that's going to Cultural Festivals Fund, in the past, they have done some decorations, so there is some money in there that could be utilized for that. I don't know if anyone else has any information on that maybe I don't have.
Is that the 400,000 we're talking about for the
Yes.
city? Yes.
So there is something in there for the Christmas in Charleston piece of
Okay.
that, or it's intended for that. Although that event usually does pretty well with some income, generating, getting your picture taken with Santa and stuff.
Mhm. So Casey, if there's something specific that you'd like funded, I think that, you can articulate that.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful to know. I mean, it looks like for this year, the ship is moving forward, and now there's also the bid, which is aiming at least on King Street to help solve some of that. But maybe for next year, it's something we can consider in advance, and I'm happy to help take the lead on that.
Okay, I'd like to help you with it.
Okay, great. We'll connect offline.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, Amy has her hand up as well.
Yes, Amy.
Sorry. So with that, the Christmas in Charleston, that's really for the events themselves. We have typically partnered with the CVB on Christmas decorations and things like that. Some of that's handled with hospitality funds, but I know there are some conversations about that, so we can talk about that at another time.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Kathy.
All right, so we're going to move forward and discuss the grant applications that we received. I will put up the slide of what the recommended amounts are. and how much we have left over to contribute, which is a little over $67,000. I also have the worksheet. That I can share. Can y'all see that worksheet now?
Yes.
Okay, so we can look at this, or we can look at the budget, which is line by line, depending on what you would prefer, the committee would prefer. And I will be over here attempting to track any
I
changes.
Yeah, I prefer what you sent us, because that's probably what most of us are familiar with. And that's the sheet you have up there now.
Okay, I'll leave it there.
It's just so small.
I'm sorry. I don't know how to make it bigger.
Well, we should be able to do it.
Just hit the plus, Kathy, on your Adobe.
Yeah.
Get that bigger.
There you go.
And then, Kathy, I'll keep track of the changes.
Okay, I've got I'll do it too. And I asked Cherry Ann to do it, so we make sure we get it right. But thank
Okay.
you, Ann.
Okay.
Anybody have any comments about, I don't know if y'all want to go page by page. The column here that says 2023 city recommendations is what, as an internal committee and as, and the mayor has given us his input, and this is what we are recommending. And
Kathy, why don't you just go through, line by line, the request and what the recommendation is?
okay, sure.
Okay.
So art forms and theater concepts, our first one requested $45,000. We have recommended 35,000. Oh gosh, I can't even speak today. I'm going to scroll to the bottom though and just skip for a minute and show you that the total request was over $4 million, as you can see here. If you add up everything that every group that applied requested, it's over $4 million. And we felt like we had about $3 million to give out. So what we have recommended for a lot of those is a bit less than what they've requested. And then we do have a little bit left over.
Okay.
So that's just for everybody's information. So, if it looks like we're not giving them what they requested, it's probably because we don't have that much money.
Okay.
So back to the art forms and theater concepts. Any discussion or questions about that one?
No, I'm fine with that.
How about, let's move on to the Charleston Black Expo. They asked for 35,000 and we recommended including their award at 35,000. We've given them a little less in the past, but we felt like we had a little bit extra money this year. Any discussion on Black Pages?
Nope.
Okay. Next is Shabbat of Charleston, which is taking over management of the Hanukkah in the Square festival from the Jewish Center. So it's the largest annual Jewish event in the state of South Carolina. They asked for 10,000 and we're recommending 10,000. Questions, discussion?
If you have a question, just put your hand up in a little. Okay.
Okay, Charleston Area Sports Commission, they asked for 30, we're recommending 30,000. That's promoting Charleston as a sports destination. Okay, if I don't hear anything, I'll just move on and stop me if I go too fast.
Yes, just keep moving.
Half marathon, requested 15, recommending 15,000.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
They seem to they didn't explain what charities are involved. I mean, after the income, they seem to have over $800,000 in income after expenses. They haven't designated there's a 501(c) and all that stuff, but who do they support? I mean, that's an awful lot of money coming in after expenses. I know we're only giving them 15,000, but just curious.
Mr. Chairman, it's Rick Giroux.
Yes, Rick.
I think all the money goes to the Engaging Creative Minds, which is a 501c3 that promotes, brings artists into the classroom to teach the core curricula. I think that's my understanding.
Okay.
Did that help, Condon?
Yes. I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, that's an awful lot of money to one organization, but it's their choice. But yeah, I just want to make sure that, not make sure, I was just curious as to where the funds were going. That's all.
Okay. That's a good
Which one are we
question.
on now, Kathy?
Charleston Horticultural Society. They asked for 3,000 and we are recommending 3,000 for their Garden Gate tour, behind the Garden Gate tour.
Okay. Charleston Jazz.
They asked for $172,620 and we're recommending 100,000 for the Jazz Orchestra season and Charleston Jazz Festival.
Charleston Library Society.
Recommended 20,000. Charleston Literary Festival, Charleston to Charleston is requested 50 and we recommended 25. Charleston Museum requested 260 and we're recommending 200. Charleston Opera Theater asked for 15 and we're recommending 15. They're a new organization. Charleston Playhouse requested $200,100 and we're recommending 35,000.
Kathy, just because of the delta on that, can you just speak to that for a moment and the major reasons?
Casey, it's hard to hear you. What were you saying?
I was just asking for some, because of the delta between the amount requested and the amount that the staff is recommending, maybe it's worth just talking through that from staff
Sure.
side.
I can do that. One reason we recommended a lesser amount is because it's a relatively new organization and a lot of what they're doing right now is in the planning stages. And what they've been able to accomplish so far this year would kind of lead us to believe that, maybe they need a couple more years to get on their feet and actually expend money that is eligible for reimbursement. So that's why we're recommending a lesser amount.
Does that help, Casey?
Yes, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Okay, Charleston Stage, we're recommending 100,000. Charleston Symphony, they asked for 250. We're recommending 225,000. Charleston Wine and Food requested 325,000 total, and we're recommending 100,000.
And Mr. Chairman, Commission Member Bush has her hand up.
Yes, Commissioner Bush.
Thank you so much, Chairman. Kathy, kind of along the same lines of what Casey's question was earlier, the difference in what Charleston Wine and Food requested versus what we're the recommendation. Can you provide some background on that as well, please?
Sure. Part of what they were requesting was funds that that we did not award in 2022, but that money was not set aside specifically for wine and food. So we didn't feel like at this point during this process, we could award that money. And so the recommendation was 100,000.
And I'm not sure whether if you go through the application packet, you'll also see that they were awarded $300,000 by the state for 2023, which in and of itself is a new allocation for them.
Mr. Chairman, it's Rick Giroux again.
Yes, Rick.
I think we maybe did not consider the request for fiscal year 2022 because City Council had declined that amount in 2022. And I think the staff did not feel comfortable overruling that decision that the City Council had made.
Thank you, Rick. You're absolutely correct. Bush, did that help any? Commissioner Bush?
It did, and somewhat to provide a little bit of color back there, I guess, where, and just to make sure being fully transparent, I've let this commission know I do serve on their board, so I will be recusing myself from any vote that is in line with them. But I also just want to make sure that we are being equitable across the board, considering the value that this particular festival brings to the community and what their ask was. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to, I think someone from the festival might be on today to offer any additional feedback or color for any reconsideration.
And if we were to reconsider, do you have something in mind? And it's totally up to this committee. And just remember, just remember what we have left. And that would also require us going back and potentially cutting other people.
Right, absolutely, completely aware of that. In terms of a number in mind, an additional 25 or 50,000, considering we have, I think the total was like 69,000 left, which would not take the whole remaining amount that's left, would be something possible for consideration.
And so you're offering that as a motion that we amend and add a $25,000 to wine and?
No, I'm not making that as a motion at all, because I currently serve on their board.
Understand.
Yes, sir. If someone else wanted to make that as a motion, I just wanted to offer that up as feedback, respectfully.
Okay.
Hi, this is Casey. I do think, if I remember correctly, the conversation earlier in the year was about, with the move to North Charleston, was this something that more rightly lived in North Charleston's jurisdiction? And then rightly, I think the festival team came back and said, well, we need to show the continued economic impact to Charleston and bring heads to beds. And so I think we were just kind of waiting to make a recommendation based on more data, and just, I don't think that it's all new. So I think everyone's just rightly trying to figure out how everything lands. But I will say, as somebody who has a 433 key hotel and a bunch of other hospitality amenities, that I would be more than supportive allocating the recommended $50,000 to their requests, which is still much less than what they had previously asked. So I would gladly make that motion, but would also reserve the right to maybe make that at the end after we've gone through everybody else to see if there's any other deserving requests.
So you want to hold off on that until we complete it?
Yes, sir. That would be my recommendation, unless somebody else.
Okay. Did I hear a second on that from anyone?
I second that.
Okay, it's been properly seconded. All in favor, say aye. That we can, the motion on the floor is that we consider it after we go through all of them and make a determination as to whether or not the funds are available to do it. I think that's the motion.
Correct.
Yes, okay. All in favor say aye? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Let's keep going, Kathy.
Okay, the next one is Low Country Jazz Fest. They asked for 90 and we're giving them 90, or we recommended 90. Next is the Avery Research Center at the College of Charleston for their archive, museum, and library. They asked for 100,000. We recommended 50,000.
Good question.
Question, yes.
I'm just curious, how is the new International African American Museum going to affect the Avery Research Institute? I mean, do you think that's going to help them, hurt them, help promote them? What's the feelings on this?
I think it's the latter. I think that when we talk about the International African American Museum, we tend to think of it as the building, but the entire city of Charleston is the museum, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree with that. I just, again, I don't know whether I know we don't have a lot of money, but I don't know whether they need a little more funding I don't know whether they'll be overshadowed, so to speak, or whether they need a little bit more funding to promote themselves.
Okay. So is that one that we want to put on hold as well?
Mr. Chairman, Mamie Bush has raised her hand.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I was just going to offer just a little bit of color to that question from Mr. Condon. I think to Councilman Gregory's point, the International African American Museum is creating synergy for the Avery Research Center, and to his point about just the city of Charleston in general. So the question regarding does the Avery Research Center need additional funding? I would support the idea of maybe holding off on that one as well to the end in that case, but just wanted to offer that the International African American Museum opening in January, and just even before they open, they are creating synergies in the community across the board.
And I would suspect, Mr. Condon, that you have a second on that? That we hold off until we're completed?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Okay, let's just keep going, Kathy.
Okay, Color of Music Festival is the next one. They asked for 75. We recommended 40,000.
Again, just a question. They have no budget. Was there a reason why they weren't able to put a budget together?
That I don't know. It's been a while since I looked at these applications, so let me see. I'm guessing the reason they don't have a 2022 is maybe they're not having the festival this year. So they're
I didn't
asking
get
for.
anybody from us.
Now, they are, Kathy, this is Rick, they are having a festival. I think we asked the same questions ourselves, but I think because they are having a festival and it does represent a significant event and series of events here in Charleston, that's why I think the staff recommended 40,000.
Mhm. I'm glad somebody can remember these meetings we had several months ago, because I can't. So
Kathy, I think that's about the extent of my memory.
That's it. I can't ask you any more questions today, right?
Okay.
All right, can we move on to the next one? Okay.
Yeah.
Columbia City Ballet asked for 10,000. We're giving them 10,000. We're recommending 10,000. They're going to do a ballet here in town. Company requested 15,000. We recommended 15. Cooper River Bridge Run asked for 150. We recommended 150,000. Drayton Hall Preservation Trust asked for 192,000 and we recommended 85,000. Eastside Community Development Corporation asked for 11,500. We recommended 10,000. Footlight Players asked for $229,547, and we are recommending 50,000. Gibbs Museum of Art requested 300,000. We're recommending 250,000. The Halsey Institute at the college asked for 44,914. We're recommending 35,000. Healthy Lifestyle Network, which is CaraFest, asked for 12,255. We recommended the full amount. Historic Charleston Foundation asked for 100,000. We recommended 100,000. The Historical Mother Emanuel AMEC Foundation asked for 150,000. We recommended 150,000. Halo, which is Holy City Arts and Lyric Opera, asked for 75,000. We recommended 35,000. Preservation Society of Charleston requested 10,000. We recommended 10,000. Pure Theater recommended asked for $24,050, and that's what we recommended. Sophia Institute asked for 55,000. We recommended 15,000. South Carolina Aquarium asked for 250,000, which is what we recommended. South Carolina Historical Society asked for 10,000. We recommended 10,000. Southeastern Wildlife Exposition asked for 325,000. We recommended 315. Spoleto Festival asked for 330. We recommended 315,000. 34 West Theater Company asked for 14,200. We recommended 12,000. And Y'all Fest asked for 15,000 and we recommended 15,000. So that gets us down to the end. And I think y'all wanted to go back and discuss a couple of ones that we already went over. So
Yeah.
we've still got the $67,558 that we can distribute if the committee chooses.
And if I'm not mistaken, there were three of them, weren't they? Wine and cheese, right? Not wine and cheese.
Charleston Wine and Food.
Wine
Yes,
and food, I'm sorry.
And the College of Charleston Avery Research Center.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the two I noted.
There was another, wasn't there, Casey? I thought there was another.
No,
Okay.
sir, not that I remember.
Okay. What about Avery? We settled Avery?
No, that was one of them.
That was one of them?
Yes.
Okay, let's discuss the two. The first one, I think, Condon,
Yes.
you had mentioned an amount.
No, I hadn't mentioned an amount. I was just saying that that it seems like we ought to put a little more money. I'm assuming we don't want to spend the whole 67, even if we could. I assume you wanted to reserve some of that. I guess, I would think maybe $10,000 or $15,000 more to the Avery Research.
You
Okay.
can allocate the whole 67,000 if you choose.
Okay. Well, I would propose $15,000 additional to the Avery Research Center.
Okay. And any recommendations for wine and food?
I had recommended the $50,000, which if we still have it, it sounds like 6715 to Avery, at least 50,000, maybe to up our contribution to the Wine and Food Festival.
So that brings us to 65,000, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I hear a motion on those two items for additional funding? And then, and one is for wine and food at 50,000. And the Avery for 15,000. Do I hear a motion to amend staff's recommendations accordingly?
I make a motion, we recommend that.
And do I hear a second? Do I hear a second?
I second it.
Okay, moved and properly seconded that we amend the amounts for wine and food and the Avery Institute.
And Mr. Chairman, Commission Member Bush had her hand up.
Yes, Commissioner Bush, I'm sorry, I can't see the whole.
That's okay, Chairman. Thank you so much. I was just going to recommend that we separate the two motions since I have to abstain or recuse myself from Charleston Wine and Foods vote.
Okay, we can go on and vote and you can recuse yourself from that specific item.
Thank
in the
you.
vote. Okay. Our clerk of council has that already for you. So all in favor say aye with the accusal of Ms. Bush for
Aye.
the wine and cheese.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Now we need to look at the entire budget. Am I correct? Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have $2,558 left, which if it's okay with the committee, I can just reduce the interest income a little bit so that we end up having a balanced budget.
Okay. All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the budget as amended? Do I
So
have
moved.
a motion? Do I have a second?
I second.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussions? If not, all in favor say aye with regard to the amended 2023 budget. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Kathy, back to you.
Okay, so I will stop sharing this.
I have a question, and I don't know why I even care, but why was there so much pushback last year about wine and food and nothing this year? Or,
Mr. Chairman, I don't think the pushback was on this committee. I think
no, it wasn't.
It was at City Council.
I mean, just a little background, Ben. I think a lot of discussion centered around the major move from Marion Square to North Charleston. That's what council's concern and discussion was all centered around.
And everybody made friends over the past year, I guess. It all worked out.
Well,
This has to go to council now.
It still has to go back to council for a vote. So let's see what happens when it goes back to council. Because council still has the prerogative to make changes. Okay.
But we're only providing a third or half of what was requested anyway, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
Yes,
correct.
yes, we are. But you know, there was some logic and rationale for that. But if the committee feels that we should give more, and I think we've already voted to do so, let's just see what council, Ben, let's see what council says. Okay?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
So now it's time to vote. Did we vote on the whole budget?
Yes, we did.
Okay. I'm a little behind. I was trying to keep track of
That's
numbers.
okay, that's okay. We voted on it as amended with the changes.
Okay. And then this is our last slide, so we're just about done. What's ahead, the 2023 budget process as it continues. as Councilmember Gregory said, this budget will go to City Council to be approved. That will be on December the 6th. We're talking about having that potential meeting in April or May to approve the CVB's planned expenditures for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. So we will be back in touch with all of the committee members about that process and what we will be doing at that time. 2024, just to give you a heads up of what we expect to happen in 2024. The grant process normally begins in July of 2023. That's when we put out the application so that the groups can fill out that application and submit it. We collect those applications usually in August, and as an internal function of staff, we review those and make sure they have correct information in them, and if we have any questions. And then the advisory committee will meet in October or November, and at that time they will approve the 2023 amended budget at that point, and also approve the 2024 proposed budget. So looking forward, a year from now, that's what we should be doing. And that's all I have. Anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we can adjourn.
Is there anything else to be brought before this committee? If not, enjoy your holiday. I'm sorry, Clerk of Council.
Mr. Chairman, Commission Member Bush has a question.
Yes, Commissioner Bush.
Yes, I do. I apologize, everyone. I have one quick question just for information. So to Casey Laban's point earlier, the data that we were waiting on from Charleston Wine and Food, they have that information. Is that something that you would like to be shared with this group at this time? Or is that something they need to wait to just do for public comment in front of City Council?
I think you do both.
Okay, so there is someone from Charleston Wine and Food on. She's asking if she can unmute.
Yeah.
Yes, although we voted, but yes.
She just wanted to provide the information.
Well, could she provide us in writing?
Yes.
Just email it to us. I think it would be much more efficient that way.
Yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate. Is there anything else to come before this committee? If not, have a happy holiday. This